Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports on our football video, and today I'm going over why the Buffalo Bills will win Super Bowl 57. In this video, I'm going to be going over some of the major aspects of the Bills' regular season, as well as some other things that make me think Buffalo has the best chance to win the Super Bowl this season. First off, I just want to start off going over their schedule. I believe that they've had the hardest schedule in the league. Against teams that are not the Bills, the teams that they've played so far this year and have yet to play with the Bengals and Patriots the last 2 weeks are 128 and 112 in total. This is obviously probably one of the higher winning percentages in the league. And then on top of that, a lot of the teams that they've played are 7-8 or 8-7 and are maybe not better than their record, but at certain points of the season they could have been better than their record when they've played Buffalo. The Jets obviously were much better when they played them. The Dolphins were better when they played them before Tua's injury. The Titans were 7-3 or were 7-3 up until their losing streak and their injuries, but before their injuries they played Buffalo and got demolished by them. They played the Lions right when the Lions were peaking. They played the Patriots when the Patriots were peaking, and they played Green Bay early on the season when Green Bay was still playing well. They played the Vikings. Obviously, that was a tough game that they ended up losing. They played the Ravens at the beginning of the year when they were playing their best football, and Lamar was still fully healthy. And obviously, Kansas City's always a tough opponent. So even if their opponent records are not as impressive as it could look, they've had arguably the hardest schedule in the league so far this year, and they're still 12-3 with the schedule that they've had. Obviously, they haven't played the Bengals yet. They play them next week. If they win that game in Cincinnati, that would be a huge win for them going into the playoffs. With this difficult schedule, arguably the hardest schedule in the league, they also have the biggest they have the biggest stat differentials between offense and defense in the league. And across the board in almost every category, they have the biggest stat differentials in the entire league. 402.3 yards per game for 317.7 yards per game against. They're second in offense and seventh in defense for yards per game. Passing yards per game, 259.5 compared to 213.3, and rushing yards per game, 142.8 compared to 104.4. They're averaging 40 more yards a game on the ground and through the air than their opponents are. 7th in passing yards a game, 7th in rushing yards a game, 15th in passing yards a game, and 4th in rushing yards a game on defense. They're also averaging 11 points a game more than their opponents, 28 points per game, which is 4th offensively, and 17.5 points against, which is 2nd defensively. Obviously, the biggest point differential margin in the league at almost 11 points a game. Yards per play, they're 3rd in the league at 6.2 yards per play, and they're 9th in the league at 5.1 yards per play against. That's a difference of 1.1 yards a play. 1.4 on offensive yards per attempt, which they're 9th in on offense and 6th on defense, and then another 1 point difference in yards per carry where they're 1st on offense and 11th on defense. Pretty much every single offensive and defensive stat category that you can find, they're top 10, except for passing yards a game and rushing yards per carry, but they're 4th in yards per game on the ground and 6th in yards per attempt through the air. Expected points added per play is an advanced statistic. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are for this or how they work, but it's a stat that usually is very telling on offensive and defensive efficiency. They're 3rd in offensive EPA per play, and they're 6th in defensive EPA per play. I also wanted to discuss Josh Allen and his revenge tour in this video. The last 5 playoff games that Josh Allen has played, he's 3-2, and he's 0-2 against Kansas City. He's completed 125 of his 182 pass attempts for 1,454 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 1 pick, with a pass rating of 116.0, 68.7 completion percentage, 8.0 yards per attempt, 11.6 yards per completion, 7.7% touchdown percentage, and 0.5% interception percentage. A lot of this stuff is from last season. Last season, he had prolific offensive efficiency passing the football. He had 9 touchdowns and 0 picks in his 2 games. He also had over 600 yards in those 2 games, and he had a phenomenal playoff performance last year, even though his team lost in the second round. He also has 42 carries for 279 yards and a touchdown over the last 2 seasons in the playoffs, bringing him to 15 total touchdowns, 6.4 yards per attempt, and 56 yards per game on the ground, giving him well over 340 yards a game between ground and air. His team is also averaging 30 points a game on offense in those 5 games. Obviously, 30 points a game has been where his team has been at in the regular season, but to average that in the playoffs against playoff defenses, especially putting up 47 against a top 2 Patriots defense last season, is an extremely impressive feat. Josh Allen has played out of his mind in some of these playoff games, especially last season with that touchdown drive at the end of the game, and the defense obviously let up the game for him when they let up the 6 or 9 second Kansas City drive to kick the field goal, and then the overtime drive to win the game. If Josh Allen had been able to, waste those extra 10 seconds that Kansas City had, or if their defense could have been anywhat close to competent in those 9 seconds, then the Bills would have won that game and went on to the AFC Championship game. But I think that Josh Allen is going to continue to put up monster stats in the playoffs. He clearly can rise to the moment. He clearly can do what he needs to do for his team to win. The real question is, will the defense be able to hold on and pick up the slack? They've allowed 80 points in 2 games against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. This Bills defense has been a top defense in the league for the last 3 seasons. The last 3 years, they've been number 1 in points, number 1 in yards, number 1 in everything. And obviously this year they're number 2 in points, but still, they're still a top defense in the league, arguably the best defense in the league. And the real question is, will they be able to hold on when it matters the most? Against Patrick Mahomes, against Joe Burrow, against whoever it is. I think that this defense this season will be mature enough, with enough playoff experience, with enough drive to be able to hold on when they need to. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes has been able to rise to the occasion whenever he's needed to, and that's why he's had more success in the playoffs than Josh Allen has. But I think that the Josh Allen's bound to win a game eventually against Patrick Mahomes. Whether they face each other, whether they don't, whether the Bengals knock off the Chiefs for them, whether they have to play the Bengals and Kansas City loses in a different round, I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I think that if the Buffalo Bills play the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, I think it'll be an interesting game, and I think that the Bills have a decent chance to hold on. It'll be a phenomenal playoff series no matter what. I think that Josh Allen will have a phenomenal revenge tour, and I think that the Bills this season have played so many tough teams. They've already beaten Kansas City, that they're going to be able to not only prove that they deserve to be a Super Bowl team, but they will also win the big game this year. A lot of people were hyping them up preseason. I think that it was well-deserved, and they've definitely proved that they deserved it. So, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Huge shout out to Quinn Lacey for supporting the channel with a channel membership.